A warm welcome to the program from the National Assembly. I'm Lami Ali. On Saturday, 30th of December 2023, the Senate sat at a special sitting to pass Nigeria's national budget. Now, the bill has been transmitted to Mr. President for his assent. That sitting is what we have for you on the program today.
Consideration of the report of the Committee on Appropriations on the 2024 Appropriation Bill 2023 SB 290. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was referred to the committee on Friday, 1st December 2023. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Adeola Solomon Olamilekon, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report.
Distinguished Senator Adeola Solomon Olamilekon.
May I move that this Senate do receive the report of the Senate Committee on Appropriation on the 2024 Appropriation Bill. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, I so move. Alongside with the revenue profile, I so move.
I stand to second the motion as requested by the Chairman of Appropriation Committee to lay the report on the 2024 Appropriation Bill. I so second.
Appropriation Bill, as concluded by the various committees of the Senate, now be laid for consideration. Those who are in support of this say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The Chairman, you may now lay your report.
Wednesday, 29 November 2023, the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, lay before the joint sitting of the National Assembly the 2024 Appropriation Bill named the Budget of Renewed Hope. In his speech, the President enjoined the members of the National Assembly to scrutinize the details of the 2024 budget estimate and present to ensure due diligence and value for money. The bill containing the estimate of revenue and expenditure of the Federation from 2024 fiscal year in the aggregate sum of 27,503,404,073 naira 861,861 naira only for the year ending 31st December 2024. 2. Legislative action. The Senate debated the general principle of the bill on the Thursday, 38th November and Friday, 1st December 2023, respectively. The bill was read for the second time on Friday, the 1st December 2023, and consequently referred to the Committee on Appropriation for further legislative action. On Saturday, 2nd December 2023, the committee met with the chairman of the subcommittee on the approval guidelines provided for the processes of the bill, and they are all urged to adhere to it. And also, in addition, in pursuant to Order 92.4 of the Senate Standing Rules, detailed schedule of the bill were referred to all subcommittee on scrutiny. Mr. President, my colleague, I wish to state here that the submission and defense of the budget report by subcommittee before the Appropriation Committee was scheduled for 5 days, Wednesday 13 to Sunday 17 December 2023. However, this was later extended to another 4 days between Monday 18 to Thursday 21st of December due to delay experienced by some subcommittee to meet the MDAs and harmonize their report with their House of Representative counterpart. Still on page 3, in the same vein, the subcommittee on conclusion of the harmonized report with the House of Representative counterpart submitted and defended the 2024 report before the Committee on Appropriation. Revenue assumption for 2024 Appropriation Bill. In preparing the details of 2024 Appropriation Bill, The committee adopted the medium-term expenditure framework strategy paper approved by the National Assembly as shown below, but later updated to the one submitted by the executive. And the assumption as stated below. Highlight of the 2024 appropriation bill. After due consideration of the submission by subcommittee and interaction with relevant stakeholders, the highlight of the bill as recommended by the committee are as follows. Aggregate expenditure, 28 trillion, 777 billion, 404 million, 73,861 naira. Statutory transfer, 1 trillion, 742 billion, 788 million, 786 million, 788,150. Recurrent expenditure, 8 trillion, 768 billion, 513 million, 380,852. Capital expenditure, 9 trillion, 995 billion, 143 million, 298 naira 28. The GDP stood at 3.88%. Mr. President, my dear colleague, it is important to state that at this point, Committee on Appropriation worked closely and harmoniously with the executive arm of government in processing the bill. Through the closely and harmonious appropriation process, the executive forwarded requests for additional funding and some item of expenditure to the committee, which were not included in the bill as submitted by the executive, in order to accommodate the request, and the following adjustments have been made on the bill. 1. The foreign exchange differentials. 2. The GOE revenue increase. 3. The GOE personnel reduction. 4. Service-wide vote weight adjustment. And 5. Reduction from service-wide. Observation. The committee observed as follows. 1. 2024 appropriation bill was presented to the National Assembly late, and this is against the Fiscal Responsibility Act that required the bill to be presented for not less than 3 months before the next financial year, which puts intense pressure on processing of the bill. 2. The provision of multilateral and bilateral loan funded project in the sum of 1 trillion, 51 billion, 914 million, 486, 314. 3. Inconsistency in the revenue of the government-owned enterprise. 4. Removal of some agencies' personnel costs from the FGM payroll. 5. Inadequate funding and shortfall in some MDA's budgetary allocation. 6. Provision of capital component is higher than compared with the previous budget presented to the National Assembly. 7. Request for additional funding on item of expenditure not originally contained in the bill. Recommendation. Arising from the above observation, the committee recommends thus: 1. To ensure thorough scrutiny of the budget proposal, the executive should henceforth comply with the provision of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. 2. Executive should ensure compliance with the provision of relevant and extant law as it concerns the GOEs. 3. Agencies removed from the FGM budget should step up their revenue generation, fund itself, and remit more to the CRF. 4. Provision of additional funds to some MDAs not appropriately funded. 5. Executive branch is encouraged to sustain the increase on capital component over the recurrent to ensure developmental program across the country. And 6. Additional funding were made available for some MDAs. Consequently, Mr. President, distinguished colleague, given that due consideration has been followed in processing 2024 appropriation bill, the committee further recommends that the Senate should consider and approve the bill for an act to authorize the issuance from the Consolidated Revenue Fund account the total sum of 28 trillion, 777 billion, 404 million, 73,861 naira, only of which 1 trillion, 742 billion, 786 million, 788,150 naira only is for statutory transfers. while 8,270,906,831 only is for debt service. Also, 8,768,513,380,852 only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 9,995,143,298,028 naira only is for contribution to the development fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on 31st day of December 2024. Conclusion. On behalf of the committee, we wish to thank the President of the Senate and the entire Senate leadership and our dear colleague for the support given to the committee in processing this bill. We also appreciate the Appropriation Subcommittee for their cooperation and understanding of the circumstances of processing this bill. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Committee on Appropriations, for a job well done. Is there anyone that wants to contribute? Move for also move the Committee on Supply to consider the clause by clause aspect of the bill. Committee on Supply.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, I rise to move that the Senate resolve to a Committee of Supply to enable us consider the report. I so move, Mr. President.
All the motion, please say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Of 12,733,069,984, 3 couple please stand as part of this bill. Say aye. Those in favor say nay. The ayes have it. Part B, deduction. Total deduction: 1,502,632,513 naira only. Those in favor that this stand part of this bill, please say aye. Those in favor, those against say nay. The ayes have it. Part C, federal government share of federation revenue: 12,236,637 naira, 737,470 naira. Those in favor that this stand as part of this schedule say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Total independent revenue: 1,907,775,748 naira. Those in favor that this stand as part of the schedule say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Schedule Part E, total dividends: 337,927,133 naira. Those in favor, please say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Schedule Part F, aid and grants: 685,632,294,000. Those in favor that this stand as part of this schedule say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Part G, special levies, accounts transfer to CRF and CDF. Special levies account: 300 billion. Those in favor that this stand as part of schedule say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Government-owned enterprises, GOEs, revenue net operating surplus: 3,645,080,469,000 naira, 469 naira only. Stand. Those in favor that this stand as part of this schedule say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Schedule Part 1, orders. Total orders: 1,4,624,571 naira. Those in favor that this should stand as part of Schedule CI. Those against any, the ayes have it. Part J, statutory transfer. 1,742,786,788 naira. Those in favor of this, that this should stand, that this should be part of the Schedule CI. Those against any, the ayes have it. Debt service, 8,270,960,606 naira, 831 kobo. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. Recorded non-debt expenditure, 8,768,513,380 naira only. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Capital expenditure, 9,995,143,298,000. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Aggregate expenditure, 404,073,861 naira. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clauses. Those in favor of clause 1, that should stand part of this will say aye. Clause 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 3, those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 4, those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 5, those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 6, those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 7, those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 8, those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 9, those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 10, those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 11, 12, and 13, those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Short title, clause 13, page 3, those in favor say aye. Long title, page 1, those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Schedule, page 2, those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Explanatory memorandum, page 14, those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Consider the reports of the Committee on Appropriations on the Appropriation Bill 2024 and approved as follows. Schedule, Part A, share of the Federation revenues. Total share of Federation revenues as recommended. Schedule Part B, deductions. Total deduction as recommended. Schedule Part C, federal shares of Federation revenues as recommended. Schedule D, independent revenues as recommended. Schedule E, other dividends as recommended. Schedule F, aids and grants as recommended. Schedule G, special levies accounts transfer to CRF and CDF, special levies accounts as recommended.
Government-owned enterprises, Part H, GOE's revenue net of operating surplus as recommended. Schedules. The total schedules as recommended. Part J, statutory transfers. Statutory transfers in total as recommended. Part K, debt service. Total debt service as recommended. The schedule. Part 1, recurrent non-debt expenditure. Total recurrent non-debt expenditure as recommended. Schedule Part M, capital expenditure. Total capital expenditure as recommended. Aggregate expenditure as recommended. Clauses 1 to 13 as recommended. Short title, clause 13 as recommended. Long title as recommended. Schedule 1 as recommended. Explanatory memorandum as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of Supply? Yes. Leader of the Senate.
Now read the third time. I so moved, Mr. President.
Be read for the third time. Those who are in support of this motion say aye, and those against say nay. The ayes have it. They are not here.
A bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation a total sum of 28,747,404,073,861 naira only, of which 1,742,788,150 naira only is for statutory transfers. 8,270,960,606,831 naira only is for debt service. 8,768,513,380,852 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 9,995,143,298,008 naira only is for contribution to the development fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2024. Third reading.
To authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation, the total sum of 28,777,404,073,861 naira only, of which 1,746,788,150 naira only is for statutory transfers. 8,270,960,606,831 naira only is for debt service. 8,768,513,380,852 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 9,995,143,298,028 naira only is for contribution to the Development Fund for Capital Expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2024. This bill is now read for the third time and passed.
31 days after submission by the executive, the 2024 Appropriation Bill is now ready for presidential assent. The harmonized report from Senate Appropriation Committee was approved, which contained an additional 1.2 trillion naira. President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, reaffirmed commitments of the National Assembly to engender deliverance of good governance by working hand in hand with the executive.
On the whole, I want to thank my esteemed colleagues. I want to extend my heartfelt congratulations to each and every one of you for the swift passage of the 2024 Appropriation Bill. When Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, presented this bill to the joint session of the National Assembly on the 30th day of November 2023, we made a solemn promise to the Nigerian people that we would tirelessly work towards its passage before the year's end. Today, I'm proud to say that we have fulfilled that promise that we made to the Nigerian people, thereby upholding the sanctity of the January to December budget cycle in our beloved nation, which will enable us to plan effectively for the further development of this country. To achieve this remarkable feat, our colleagues, both in the Senate and in the National Assembly, exerted themselves to the point of extortion. Hand in hand with our esteemed counterparts, we worked tirelessly. We had to conduct a joint budget defense sessions. It was very uncommon and a new innovation, where the Senate committees and the House of Representative committees jointly met together to discuss with all the MDAs and the government-owned enterprises and the ministries and ministers to conduct affairs of the budget, therefore reducing time because of the need for us to ensure that the Nigerian people realize the promise that we made to them. So this ensured that we had limited time available for this crucial exercise. I express my utmost gratitude to the various committees of the Senate, and this time particularly the Appropriation Committee, for their exceptional efforts in ensuring the successful passage of this vital appropriations bill. Our work does not end here. We will continue to labor diligently to ensure that the bill is promptly transmitted to Mr. President for his immediate assent, enabling its implementation to commence on January 1st, 2024. I also wish to express my deep appreciation to my esteemed colleagues for your patience, for willingly truncating your Christmas holidays and Christmas celebrations, and even particularly your New Year holidays and recess to ensure the completion of this national duty. This selfless service, I must say, exemplifies the sacrifices that the National Assembly consistently makes for the progress and development of our great nation. As we again embark on our well-deserved recess, which we must take, I extend my warm wishes to each and every one of you for a restful break and a joyous and prosperous New Year 2024. May the Almighty Allah, our dear God, bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria, bless the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, bless the National Assembly, bless the Nigerian people abundantly. Can we say amen?
Also at the special plenary, Deputy President of the Senate Barrow Jibrin and Senator Jimoh Ibrahim raised motions on the demise of former Speaker House of Representatives Gali Umar Abba and the late Governor of Ondo State Oluwarotimi Akeredolu.
The founding presiding officer of the Fourth Republic of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Gali Umar Abba, who died on Tuesday last week. He died here in Abuja and he was buried in Kano according to Islamic rites. He was the Speaker of the House of Representatives between 1999 and 2003. He fought to put the necessary structure, the taking of the House of Representatives of the Fourth Republic. He was a dogged fighter who stood firm for the independence of the legislature. He will never be remembered for the sacrifice he made to make sure that House of Representatives was put in the best place to perform its function. So I therefore feel that he needs to be honored by the distinguished Senate for his contribution to the development of the legislature of this country, and that a minute silence should be observed in his honor. Mr. President, I so submit.
Right Honorable Naba will ever for his dogged fight for separation of powers between the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, and he stood firm on that throughout his tenure. He advanced the frontiers of democracy in our dear country. They were almost like the pioneers in 1999. And so most of the rules and others that we are operating were drafted by them, initiated by them. And they have been able to lay the solid foundation that has seen democracy through for the past 24 years. Unfortunately, he has passed on and he has been buried in Kano. Is it the view of the Senate that he be honored with a minute silence in his honor as proposed and seconded? Those who are in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The winner rise. Right Honorable Speaker Emeritus Gali Naba, who presided over the House of Representatives between 1999 and 2003, rest in perfect peace.
It was a sad day in Ondo State during the Christmas. Precisely on the 7th, we had deaths calling to take the first seat of Ondo State, His Excellency Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, the voice of the people, the governor of Ondo State, the founder of major infrastructure development, particularly the Amateku security issues in Ondo State. A governor that came to serve, a governor that was loved by his people, a governor that departed within a very short time, unbelievably. Mr. Senate President, I will not want to take much of our time because time is fast spent, but it is to say that Oluwarotimi Akeredolu came as a legend, a man who served his people. He was the former president of Nigeria Bar Association, and despite that, he was governor of our state, elected twice to serve the people of Ondo State. But as it is, Mr. President, it's so unfortunate that over 4.5 million people of Ondo State are currently bereaved, and 3 of us are distinguished senators in these chambers. Mr. President, Akeredolu is gone. He was a former governor, like I said. He did a lot for the honor of the state. He was someone that we likely remember for peace and, of course, for development of our good people of Ondo State. My prayer, Mr. President, is for this hallowed chamber to take notice of the demise of our governor, who have done so well for us. And if Your Excellency will create the indulgence of my distinguished colleagues to just observe 1 minute silent prayer for the departing soul. We don't know where the soul is, but one thing we know, we can trade the soul by the hard work, by the development, by the good things, by the deed, by the trust that Akeredolu has done to the people of Ondo State. I so move, Mr. Senate President. Thank you, sir.
This does not require a second man. It does not also require debates. Through personal explanation, you brought something that has touched the heart of the Senate and the heart of politicians in Nigeria. The demise of His Excellency Governor Rotimi Akeredolu of Ondo State. Distinguished colleagues, in line with this request and in line with tradition, a colossus is gone. We may still have time to discuss further when we have a normal legislative date. But we will do the necessary in terms of giving him honor in these chambers by observing a minute silence in honor of his demise. May we rise. May the soul of the late governor of Ondo State, a brave and fearless man, a legal icon and a colossus, a politician per excellence, a performer loved by his people and loved by Nigerians, who recently passed on, Rotimi Akeredolu, rest in perfect peace.
The recent killings in Plateau State also led the Senate to pass a resolution to invite security chiefs. Senators sympathized with victims of the heinous attack following a motion from Senator Diket Plang.
Plateau State, known as a home of peace and tourism, is gradually losing its once peaceful nature and atmosphere due to incessant crises and attacks by marauding criminals. Senate notes also that Mangu, Bokos, and Barkin Ladi local government areas of Plateau State, located within Plateau North and Plateau Central senatorial districts, have consistently come under attack by criminal elements in the last few months, with the recent attack on the 24th of December 2023, which was a Christmas Eve, while many were celebrating the Christmas season, leading to wanton destruction of lives and properties, and a Black Christmas for inhabitants of these areas. Senate notes further that this recent attack appears to be a well-coordinated and well-orchestrated, with about 20 villages being attacked simultaneously, leading to the loss of life of about 195 persons, and while still counting, with others having varying degrees of life-threatening injuries and permanent deformities. Aware that the crisis in Plateau State is further exacerbated by the impact of climate change on the environment, the drying up of the Lake Chad, and the mass movement of cattle into Plateau in search of vegetation and fodder, and also the influx of illegal miners who often clash with landowners. This makes the crisis rather complex because of its economic, ethnic, religious coloration. Hence, the need to tighten up the grazing policies and then the mining and environmental laws of the federal and states to checkmate this. However, that the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, upon receiving the news of the crisis, he has to assess the situation and also condole the families of the victims of the attack. Further, aver that the Chief of Defense Staff and other service chiefs and the Inspector General of Police have acted swiftly by deploying troops to the crisis area. This is also commendable, but a lot more needs to be done to curb further attacks, especially within the rumors of more attacks happening in the coming months, leaving the people in paralyzed fear. This appears to be the trend in recent times. Cognizant that from the previous experiences with the nature of these attacks in so many locations across Nigeria, having a temporary military presence will only bring some cosmetic relief, because in many instances, the situation often gets worse once the military operations are over. Also, where the fight is not taken to the criminals by locating and disseminating their hideouts, the crisis will never be over. Plateau State, known for its vegetative and rocky nature, is an easy environment for these criminals to hide and carry out their heinous and nefarious activities. But the terrain is not such a difficult one as to interfere with military surveillance operations, especially with modern military technology like the use of drones and robots, which will help in locating the criminal hideouts and disseminating them in its totality. Further cognizant that despite the temporary relief the victims of the crisis are experiencing due to enhanced military presence, most of them are in their need of essential supplies, especially food, medicine, clothing, and shelters. Most of them have also lost their means of livelihood and living in fear of unescapable penury. Convinced that the primary responsibility of government is the protection of lives and properties of its citizens and the provision of an enabling environment for citizens to strive, they go about their lawful duties. Accordingly, resolved to: 1. The Senate need to observe a minute silence at plenary in honor of victims that lost their life. 2nd, the Senate should send a high-power delegation led by the uncommon president of the Senate to the crisis areas to condole with the victims. That would be great. 3rd, Senate should urge the Federal Minister of Humanitarian Affairs to direct its agencies to provide relief materials, especially building materials, to the victims of the crisis with immediate effect, to enable them to relocate back to their homes and to congest the IDP camps. 4th, urge the Inspector General of Police to complete the already ongoing mobile barracks situated in Barkin Ladi local government area. 5th, urge the Chief of Defense Staff to establish a mobile military base in Janaret village of Mangu local government area, which is a border point and an entry route for the criminals who commit these barbaric acts and escape freely. 6, urge the Nigerian military to deploy intelligence and aerial surveillance in the affected local government areas of Plateau State and its environments and disseminate the criminals completely or in its totality. 7, urge the Minister of Solid Mineral Development to immediately take action in putting a check on illegal miners and mining activities in the country, especially the affected regions. 8, urge the Plateau State government to strengthen its environmental mining laws to check the excesses of illegal miners in the state. 9, urge the Plateau State government to upscale dialogue between traditional and religious leaders, especially in the affected areas, to find a non-kinetic solution towards coping this crisis. 10, issue such further directives as deemed by the Senate expedient in the circumstance to ensure compliance with these resolutions. Thank you.
On behalf of the Northern Senators Forum, I moved into the plateau, had 2 sessions with the executive governor of Plateau State before paying a courtesy call with some members of the forum as to the gravity of what happened in Bokos. Mr. President, what happened in Bokos is unprecedented. It is unprecedented. Where you have a catchment of bandits, over 400 of them moving at a go. And when I sat with the governor, the stories I had was mind-boggling. First, there was a rumor of this attack. Second, the governor tried to make this information available, but they didn't take him serious. Sir, I was a youth teaching hospital in Jos, and you could see a 3-month-old baby with a gun wound. 3 months. Some actually beheaded. This is unprecedented. It is important, sir, like I always say, until we see the importance of security as the only survival of this country, we'll never move forward. We need to urgently, sir, call the security agents to question. There's no synergy. Forget that the IG was there, the national security was there. It is important that they're there. But where is the synergy? Sir, as we speak, Plateau State government is in dire need. It's in dire need because right now they are settling more than 150,000 IDPs. They are feeding them. The entire security architecture of the state, they are paying for them. What was discovered? That these marauding bandits are not moving with weapons. Those weapons were actually domiciled in some certain locations. All they do is to come and pick them. That means there's something behind what is happening in Plateau. Who are these people? Who are these people and where are they doing it? Because you go there, sir, from the outside, you thought it's a religious war. None of it. There's something behind it that this Senate must need to unearth. It's a very terrible phenomenon, Mr. Senate President. We have forgotten our humanity. The carnage you've seen, small arguments, small differences. People will kill people in their thousands, in their dozens. And it doesn't touch their conscience. Lastly, sir, what I have also discovered, because I spent 72 hours in Plateau, was the little information about those bandits. They are not living around the communities. Somebody imported them. Somebody escorted them. They don't even know the terrain. They were led by some people who know the terrain. And when you look at the communities, they are now sharply divided. Where Bokos, Barikiladi, even where there were crises, there is no way you will separate Christian and Muslim because they are intermixed. There are communities that are so intermixed. In a family like this, you have Christians and Muslims. That's so intermixed. But what happened on the Christmas Eve? On the Christmas Eve, was something that needs to be investigated by security agencies. It should not be just rhetoric. It just not be talks. Sir, anybody who is assigned responsibility as a security chief and he cannot deliver, he must be shown out. The National Assembly are shown out after 4 years, and we even have a recall item in the Constitution. If we cannot deliver, our constituents are asked to recall us, and 4 years will also go for election. We can't keep doing everything all the time and no result.
Nigeria is in trouble. And I think when you face a challenge as serious as this, there is no point pretending. Distinguished colleagues, when this administration came on board, one of the initial steps that made this government very popular was a change in the leadership of the security system in this country. We all applauded Mr. Senate President that he had started well. And the service chiefs that came before the Senate appeared to be people that are capable of delivering on their mandates collectively. But 6 months down the road, distinguished colleagues, there appears to be no difference from what used to be the case in the preceding administration's tenure. I think there is need for us to call these service chiefs again. Distinguished colleagues, I also escaped death narrowly last few days when I went home for Christmas. I wanted to attend the burial of the mother of one of our traditional rulers in my local government headquarters. In the morning, I had prepared to go to my village. But then suddenly, I just had this change of mind, and I didn't go. Later in the day, there was an attack on Makudi Naka Road, and three persons were killed. Several were attacked. If I traveled to my village on that day, today, I will not be here speaking in these hallowed chambers. So, we are all involved. I don't think there's any part of this country that is spared this problem of insecurity. If there is only one thing this administration will do differently from the previous administration, one will score the Tinubu administration 100%. I think there is need for us as a nation to carry out a national security summit. Let us sit down. We are told that these people are not Nigerians. But then, we have a duty to know where these people are coming from. In my own senatorial district, 3 local government areas out of 7 are already overrun. So, there is a problem. Let us sit down as a nation. Let us sit down and talk. If there are people within that are conspiring, even within security agencies, let us talk. Let us know why we cannot have security in our own country. The weapons were already deposited in the various villages they attacked. That they are targeting, they will now go to where the weapons, and definitely the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is new, but this is multifaceted. Senator Plank said it has something to do with ethnicity. In some instances, religious connotation. In some instances, financial and commercial connotation because of mining purposes. And that may account for the idea of wiping out children so that they will not come back to ask for their father's lands. So we won't discuss everything here because there will be need to stop them from occupying those places that they have wiped out the indigenes. In case the intention is for them to take over the land and start mining activities without let or hindrance. But let me hear from the former governor of Plateau State, who himself is a son of the soil, distinguished Senator Lalong.
It's really unfortunate. Mr. President was almost summarizing everything. Yes, I will not start with Plateau. I will say that it is entirely in the northern states. By virtue of my privilege to be chairman of the Northern Governors Forum for 4 years, when there were similar things all over the country. But with particular reference to Plateau, I heard the report from the military this morning. I will say that I was disappointed. Disappointed how? Because part of it was that why they couldn't deal with the situation in Mangu and Bokos was because of proximity and of course also the terrain. And I asked the question, for a military, for armed forces, there is nothing like terrain. There is nothing like distance. In Plateau State, because of several crises, we have proliferation of outfits. We have the creation of Operation Safe Haven, all funded by the state government. We have the Operation Rainbow, funded by state government. That is increase in the capacity. Of recent, we created the Kerang Rescue, which is an Air Force base with helicopters. The issue of Mangu, many people were killed around Kerang. Where was the Air Force? Where are the helicopters? Today, sir, we discussed about Tucano jets. We are told that Tucano jets are now available. We discussed about drones. The drones are available. My spirit is that we must first of all deal with the criminals, because before we come back to deal with the internal situation. Yes, like every society, we have conflicts. We have religious conflicts and differences. We have ethnic conflicts and differences. But when a dimension like this comes into effect, it calls the attention of Mr. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Because the killings that were done in systematic manner. But as we move in, I don't think that the role of the military is always to employ kinetic. We discussed that in Kaduna and we came to resolution that as much as we go into kinetic, we must also dwell on non-kinetic methods in settling disputes in these various states. And if it was so, it took a long time. This information is not the first. This attack is not the first. Always on Christmas Eve. Always on Christmas Eve. So as we move into this kind of thing, I also want to support, because the bill failed last time. Mr. President, if you give permission, we are bringing it back again. The role of traditional rulers in security. Let us give them constitutional roles. I'm not saying that we must always talk about state police, but we have traditional rulers that can always produce solutions to this kind of problems. We brought a law and the law failed last time. But I am here. I will still sponsor another law, and with the help of the Senate, let us give some roles to our traditional council on addressing issues of security. As I said, dialogue is very, very important. We created peace building. Yes, we created interreligious council. We know the terrain of Plateau State. It may not be like Benue, but in Plateau State, a little skirmishes of traditional or even a family dispute may always move into a religious conclusion. And then you have this dimension of crisis. But however, it is not insurmountable. And with this present Senate and the way Mr. President of the Senate is taking the issue, I agree with Senator Nagy and also with my Senator Dicket Plan, that first of all, let us go back to address the issues.
Let me thank distinguished Senator Dicket Plank for bringing this to the fore, and also thank all those who have contributed to this motion, and to say that yes, indeed, we have a responsibility to comply with the provisions of our Constitution, which is that the primary role of government is to ensure the protection of lives and properties. This is a very unfortunate, a very barbaric and a very terrible tragedy for Nigeria that had led to be regarded as a Black Christmas for the country, because the level of killings were unprecedented and the number of villages affected simultaneously were also unprecedented. And it's very clear that these things were very coordinated, and therefore we believe there was failure of intelligence and failure of reaction, of timely reaction. And that is why the Senate is taking this very seriously. May we rise for a minute silence in honor of those who lost their lives.
Meanwhile, Senate has approved securitization of outstanding ways and means.
The securitization of the outstanding debit balance of 7,388,696,034,520 naira 87 kobo in the CFR as at December 11. Those in support of the approval say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The securitization of the 7.8 trillion is hereby approved. The Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the request of Mr. President on the securitization of the sum of 7,388,696,034,520 naira 87 kobo in the consolidated revenue account of the Federation, and approved the request of the Commander-in-Chief and Mr. President. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Distinguished colleagues, will the Senate confirm the approval of the sum of 7,388,696,034,520 naira 87 kobo as securitization as requested by Mr. President and approved in the Committee of the Whole? Will the Senate confirm this? Those who are in support of the confirmation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The sum of 7,388,696,034,520 naira 87 kobo is hereby approved for securitization and confirmed.
The medium-term expenditure framework 2022 to 2026 was also adjusted to reflect the changes in the 2024 budget, while the 2022 to 2024 external borrowing rolling plan was also approved.
To enable us to conclude on the budget that we have just passed, I want to invite the chairman of the Committee on Finance to revisit the revised medium-term fiscal framework, MTF, and fiscal strategy paper to bring same in line with the current realities of the budget. Chairman.
2024 to 2026 medium-term fiscal framework, MTF, and fiscal strategy paper as amended. You all recall that on Wednesday, 22nd November 2023, the Senate considered the report of the Committee on Finance and National Planning and Economic Development. However, owing to the overriding economic exigencies, the federal government submitted a revised 2024 to 2026 medium-term fiscal framework to address 2024 budget realities and to ensure sustainable economic development for the periods. Under review, the revised medium-term fiscal framework was necessitated by the federal government's adjustment of the projected budget benchmark price of US dollars from 73.96 per barrel earlier submitted to $77.96 as revised projection in the 2024 document. Also, the exchange rate of Naira to the US dollar was revised from 700 Naira in the earlier submission to 750 Naira as a basis for 2024 budget realities. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, the assumptions and underlying oil revenue projections remain almost the same. I will go to page 25. In the light of the above findings, I go to the recommendations. The committee makes the following recommendations. One, that the benchmark oil price of USD 77.96, 73.76, and USD 69.90 per barrel be approved for 2024, 2025, and 2026 respectively. That the daily crude oil production of 1.78 million barrels per day, 1.8 million barrels per day, and 1.81 million barrels per day for 2024, 2025, and 2026 respectively be approved, subject to NMPC confirmation of actual and verifiable deliveries. 3, the exchange rate of 750, 665.61, and 669 Naira.79 to $1 be proposed by the executive for the periods 2024 to 2026 be considered for approval, with federal government vigorous drive to enhance local production of both oil and non-oil for increased foreign reserve growth. 4, that all items locally produced should be outrightly banned from importation and customs tariffs amended accordingly. 5, that the CBN should ensure that the banks have access to forex in order to provide funds to importers and other users to prevent patronage of parallel markets. 6, that in the light of the federal government's response of physical measures to stimulate the economy by significant investment in infrastructures, small and medium enterprises, and the agricultural sector, the GDP growth rate of 3.76, 4.22, and 4.78% during the years of 2024, 2025, and 2026 be approved. That the inflation rate of 21.4% in 2024, 20.30% in 2025, and 18.60% in 2026 be approved. That the federal government's targets setting approach and its determination to enhance the major revenue generating agencies' collection efficiency will support the fiscal deficit estimate of 9 trillion, including GOEs, is noted and be approved. 9, that the federal government should continue to enforce the implementation of the performance management framework for GOEs by ensuring that they operate in a more fiscally responsible manner while reviewing their operational efficiencies and declared cost to income ratios. That the 7.8 trillion in new borrowings, both domestic and foreign, be supported, as well as given the country's current effective debt management strategy, which has moderated borrowing costs and decreased the amount of short-term debt in the portfolio and refinancing risks be considered. That the MTEP FSP documents ancillary parameters listed below for 2024 to 2026 be maintained as well. That the federal government of Nigeria recommended spending of 27.5 trillion with 18.32 trillion in retained revenue be considered. A 9.18 trillion budget deficit, including GOEs, should also be considered. 7.8 trillion naira in new borrowings, including borrowing from foreign and local domestic sources, be considered. 1.38 trillion worth of statutory transfers an estimated 8.2 trillion in debt service, 243.6 billion in the sinking fund, all be considered. So I think most of these recommendations have already been captured, and the two major parameters that we need to give approval to is the exchange rate from 750. I think we all have the recommendations that the National Assembly begin the process of amending the Fiscal Responsibility Act, FRA 2007, in order to enhance the agency's ability to enforce fiscal responsibility and impose sanctions on erring staffs, specifically with regard to Section 21, subsection 1 and 2, and Section 22, 1 and 2. The National Assembly Standing Committees take prompt action to review the laws governing the activities of all revenue-generating agencies under their purview in order to identify specific sections or clauses that need to be amended in order to plug waste and increase the government's capacity to generate revenue. That the federal government agencies ensure deployment of ICT in the collection of all revenues by MDAs, including stamp duty collection activities, in order to block leakages. Having discovered that the subsidiaries of NIPOs so created are irregular and illegal, we therefore recommended that for them to be wounded up and deregistered immediately. 16, the sum of 10 billion released by Ministry of Finance for the proposed NIPOS restructuring and recapitalization be investigated, and the funds fully recovered if established to be injudiciously utilized by the relevant committee of the Assembly charged with the responsibility of fiscal prudency. 17, that the Budget Office of the Federation, Ministry of Finance, and the Ministry of Budget and National Planning reevaluate the underlying assumptions for all federal government agencies' income targets in order to confirm the veracity of those assumptions and the resulting effects. I go to 21, please. That the Bureau of Public Enterprise Act be amended to remove the clause that create conflicts between it and MOFI, while MOFI should be authorized custodian of all federal government assets, both liquid and physical. That the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited should work towards reducing its production and operational costs, thereby increasing available government revenue. All tax waivers not directly linked to non-governmental, non-profit organizations should not be granted. All tax waivers from 2015 to date should be investigated by the relevant committee of the Senate. I so submit, Mr. President.
Any comment?
I just had the report of the Chairman Finance. You talked about a stay rate of 750 to $1. But this contrasts with the report of the Chairman Appropriation, who talked about 800 naira to $. So how to reconcile the two? Otherwise we can move forward.
77.96 dollars, $73.76 and 69.90 per barrel be approved for 2024, 2025, and 2026 respectively. Any amendment?
The executive adopted a $77 per barrel. But looking at the current price in the markets, we will say that we should express some fears. But I want to say that because of the exchange rate differences which we currently have, that can serve as a shock absorber in the immediate. But I'm hoping that we will have a benchmark that will go up later. As we currently stand, the benchmark, the oil price in the market is $74 to a barrel, as against $77. But as I've said, because of the exchange rate difference which we currently have, we can, or we should hope that the price will go up eventually. So we can still sustain the $77 for now, and hoping that we are able to return and go beyond the $77 in the future.
Price of United States $77.96, $73.76, and $69.9 per barrel be approved for 2024, 2025, and 2026 respectively. Those who are in support of these recommendations say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. 1.8, 1.81 for 2024, 2025, and 2026 respectively be approved, subject to NNPC's confirmation of actual and verifiable deliveries. Those who are in support of recommendation 2 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 3, the exchange rate of 750.
We are revising the existing report that was passed in the past. So if we are revising, why are we not using the current rate of 800 naira, which we have just passed into law? Because that is why it was revised. Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleague. Yes, take an amendment, yes. Because 800 naira to $1 as the revised rate, as the revised MD reform. I so move.
Recommendation 3 will now read that the exchange rate of 800 naira to $1, 669.9 to $1, proposed by the executive for 2024 to 2026 be considered for approval as amended. Those who are in support of this amendment say aye. Those who are against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 6. Any objection? Recommendation 7. Any objection? Recommendation 8. Any objection? Recommendation 9. Any objection? Recommendation 10. Any objection? Recommendation 11. Any objection? Any election? Recommendation 12. Any objection? Recommendation 13. Any objection? None. Recommendation 14. Any objection? Recommendation 15. Any objection? Recommendation 16. Any objection? Recommendation 17. Any objection? Recommendation 18. Any objection? Recommendation 19. Any objection? Recommendation 20. Any objection? Recommendation 21. Any objection? Recommendation 22. That the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation should work towards reducing its production and operational costs in order to increase available government revenue. Those who are in support of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 23. All tax waivers not directly linked to non-governmental and non-profit organizations should not be granted. Those who are in support of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation 24. All tax waivers from 2015 to date should be investigated by the relevant committees of the Senate. Those who are in support of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Let me thank the chairman of finance and members of the relevant committees for a wonderful job on the amended medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper for 2022 to 2026, and to say that you have done a wonderful job in the service of your nation. Congratulations.
On local and foreign debts and aid loans and debt management, on the request for approval of the federal government 2022-2024 external rolling plan. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, you will recall that on the 4th November 2023, a communication from Mr. President requesting for the approval of the Senate for external borrowing was read on the floor, and same was referred to the Committee on Local and Foreign Debt for further legislative action. The request contained external borrowing from various listed multilateral and bilateral global donor leaders and partners in various amounts. The Joint Committee notes that the borrowing are largely concessional loans with low interest rates, very long moratorium and payback periods. Due to the shortfall in our annual revenue in relation to our need for rapid infrastructure and human capital development, we have had to pass deficit budget every year, requiring us to borrow to finance the deficit in our budget. The Joint Committee invited all implementing MDAs to defend their various projects as captured in the borrowing plan. The total borrowing request as captured in the attached schedule of Mr. President's request is 7,944,508,558 United States dollars, and the committee approved a total of 7,444,408,559 United States dollars. Consideration of the outstanding will resume as soon as all necessary information which the committee requires to carry out its responsibility are provided by the affected agency. The committees note, most importantly, that the terms and conditions under which the loan will be borrowed will not in any manner compromise the sustainability of the Nigerian economy, hinder the integrity and independence of Nigeria as a sovereign nation. The committees therefore recommend as follows: that the Senate do approve the underlisted ongoing negotiation of the external borrowing in the sum of 7,444,408,559 United States dollars and 100 million euro for the external borrowing rolling plan. That the terms and conditions of the loan from the funding agencies be forwarded to the National Assembly prior to the execution of same for concurrence and proper documentation. I so submit, Mr. President. Thank you.
Negotiation of external borrowing program of the federal government in the sum of 7,444,508,559 United States dollars and 100 million euros under the 2022-2024 external borrowing rolling plan. Will the Senate approve as submitted and recommended by Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief? Those who are in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. And therefore, the 2022-2024 external borrowing plan of the federal government is hereby approved. Recommendation 2, that the terms and conditions of the loan from the funding agencies which are in this paper listed as World Bank, Africa Development Bank, AFDB, Islamic Development Bank, French Development Agency, that the terms and conditions of the loan from the funding agencies be forwarded to the National Assembly prior to the execution of same for concurrence and proper documentation. Those who are in support of recommendation 2 say aye. This again say nay. The ayes have it. Let me thank the chairman of the committee, distinguished Senator Wamako, and of course the deputy chairman, distinguished Senator Manu, and all the members for a wonderful job in this joint committee on local and foreign debts and AIDS loans and debt management for the wonderful report that has just been approved by the Nigerian Senate.
After the passage of the budget, the Senate made a pledge that it will ensure that MDAs, that is ministries, departments and agencies of government, implement the 2024 appropriation in line with the spirit and letters of the budget documents. Now, this is where we come to the end of today's edition of the program from the National Assembly. We thank you for your time. On behalf of all those that made the program a success, I am Lami Ali, thanking you for your time and saying Happy New Year in 2024.